Beneath the clear blue waters of the tropical and peaceful Undella Bay lies one of Unova's most enigmatic locations, the Abyssal Ruins. It's an entirely optional area, and yet it is incredibly carefully crafted. How many locations in Pokémon can say they have their own personal lore, separate from what the rest of the region offers? There is a treasure trove of incredibly interesting and unique information hidden between the sunken walls of these once majestic ruins. And today, I want to bring it up to the surface where it belongs. According to the description of the ruins on the map, they serve as the final resting place for an ancient king, which is similar to many tombs and ruins in real life. The most famous are probably the pyramids in Egypt, but the Abyssal Ruins specifically are most likely based on the Yonaguni monument, found off the coast of the Ryukyu Islands to the south of Japan. Not exactly New York, like the rest of Unova, but the same can be said for Undella Town in general. Anyway, unlike the Yonaguni monument, which, believe it or not, is actually a naturally created formation, the Abyssal Ruins are remnants of a lost civilization. Not only did they create the structure itself, they are also responsible for filling it with very rare items and mysterious messages in a long lost language. These writings connect to the very core themes of the Gen 5 games and even its most iconic characters, but more on that later. First, I want to look at the items that can be found on the seabed. Found in the Abyssal Ruins are a total of 46 unique items. 14 of them are the Arceus Blades, which tells us this ancient civilization also worshipped Arceus, like we've seen before in Sinnoh and formerly Hisui. 2 plates, the Splash and Draco ones, cannot be found here, and are instead given to the player by a man who claims to have found them in the Abyssal Ruins, a not so subtle nod to encourage the player to check out the ruins. The other 32 items are completely unique to the ruins, and can only be found here, a valuable but ultimately useless line called the Relic items. What I mean by that is that they serve no in-game purpose, beyond being sold for nearly 2 million Pokédollars combined. However, they are centerpieces in the history of the ruins and provide our first clue at its creators. That said, finding all these items in one go is completely impossible, as after 500 steps, a torrent of water will force the player to retreat and start their excavation from the entrance again. Anyway, while there may be 32 relics down there are only 7 unique items. The first 3 are materials, the relic copper, silver and gold. For an ancient civilization capable of creating ruins like this, it isn't too surprising they would have access to these metals. Next are 2 kinds of decorative items, the relic vase and relic statue, of which respectively 4 and 3 copies exist. As I'm sure you know, civilizations have been making statues and vases for centuries, so this is not too surprising either. There are also 5 relic bands, which are bracelets, found in the ruins. And finally, the only item to be found on the 4th floor is the relic crown, which surely belonged to the late king in whose honor the ruins have been erected. The descriptions of these items tell us the civilization in question lived over 3000 years ago, which in our world at least places them around the Middle Ages. That's a lot more recent than the real-life cultures this seems to be inspired by, like the Romans of Europe or South American civilizations like the Aztecs or Mayans. That may be everything the game tells us about these items, but the Japanese website for the game has more information for us. In a section called the Mystery Files, in-universe lore geeks visit the Abyssal Ruins and mostly repeat familiar information. Save for a few sentences, that is. I quote, "These objects, which cannot be examined with modern tech, are proof that an ancient civilization existed. Where did this advanced technology come from? We can't rule out they got it from the future." You would have never guessed it from the in-game designs and descriptions of these items, but they are apparently so advanced that experts question how this ancient civilization made them, strongly hinting there may have been some future knowledge involved. Now, we know these people knew and worshipped Arceus, so in a post-Legends Arceus world, it's understandable your mind immediately heads towards the involvement of the Alpha Pokémon. But trust me, the Llama God is off the hook this time. The mysterious writings on the walls of the ruins outline exactly how the civilization was able to produce these advanced relics. Each floor has several pillars with these messages on them. They consist of symbols which correspond to letters. In order to unravel their true meaning, players need to beat the game and talk to Zinzalin, one of Team Plasma's 7 sages and one of the new prominent members of the evil team following Ghetsis' disappearance. He will give the player books which used to belong to Ghetsis, which contain ways to decipher the symbols in the ruins. Fortunately, you don't have to do this yourself, as the game will automatically translate the text when you have the book in possession. Either way, it does tell us Ghetsis has a special interest in the ruins, the reason for which will become clear when you know the contents of the scriptures. So let's dive into that, shall we? We're just gonna work our way up, so we'll begin with the first floor and end with the text that accompanies the relic crown on the fourth floor. The first area of the Abyssal Ruins contains a total of 20 messages, by far the most. Many outline the story of the ancient civilization and its king, but there are also some with gameplay functions. I'll be reading the Japanese translations for you now, because the English texts suffer severely from limited character space, making the Japanese originals a lot more intriguing. It opens with a bit of an introduction. Brave ones, listen to the king's words. Here, the king took his name. This insinuates the temple may not only be the king's final resting place, but also the site of his coronation. It continues. May you have the heart of the king. The king is brave. The king has hope. The king is kind. The king has to take risks. The king accepted all. The king wrapped himself in the heart of love. The king has the power to move his people. The king has the power to illuminate the people. The king had a dream. The king would not be swept away by hatred. These texts paint a clear image of the king of this ancient civilization. He's a kind ruler who accepts all into his nation. He strives for peace, not war, which is also indicated by the relic items being vases and statues instead of swords and shields. The wording of swept away by hatred also suggests that this was a serious risk at the time, but not a lot can really be said about the possible origins of said hate. At the very least, the king was not only a good leader by our standards, but also by ancient ones. Next are a section of gameplay hints as to which path to take to find your way through the ruins. They describe which corners to turn to avoid the water, and when you're almost out of steps, 2 encouraging messages emerge that put you in the king's shoes. Go on, brave king. This does mean that the creators of the ruins were aware of the currents inside them, which is important information we will return to later, so keep it in mind. On to the second floor, which has significantly less scriptures to analyze. They are, however, a lot more lore heavy and tell us a lot more about the true nature of this king. All are equal. To eat is to accept all lives. Do not act coerce. Do not be barbaric. War produces nothing but infinite sorrow. It's not just right and wrong, there's something in between. To live is to be grateful. Not only does this further paint the king as a man of peace and equality, it also shows his views align perfectly with the themes of the game. It's not always black and white, there is something in between. This is also illustrated by text on the third floor. The king is hope to us all, and all of ours ideal. One must have both heart and the power to love, one reads, which clearly ties into the themes of Pokémon Black and White. It then continues, the king has the power to converse with all living beings. The king saw into the future and protected the people from a tsunami. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Not only can this king talk to both people and Pokémon, he can also see the future and saved his people from the waves the ruins are now found underneath. This is also where Ghetsis and his adopted son N tie in. Talking to Pokémon, seeing the future, both are inhuman abilities N for some reason is capable of. And his connections to the ancient king only grow stronger when we head to the fourth floor. However, this is where Ghetsis' books start to let us down. 4 of the 5 writings on the top floor contain a symbol that cannot be translated, and so we can only speculate about the meaning of these words. However, in the game's text, this symbol is depicted with black dots, the length of which differ per language version, indicating that there is a word genuinely hidden beneath it. It's not just some placeholder to make things feel mysterious. The writers and translation teams know what words belong here. Time for us to join them. Let's begin with the first scripture, which reads, the king single-handedly defeated ... So, in English, this word is 5 characters long. Based on this information, my suggestion for this word is waves. We already know he protected his people from a tsunami, so that seems to fit. Now, I did try to cross-reference the length of this word to the other languages the game appears in, so Japanese, German, Spanish, Korean, French and Italian, but this is very difficult without being a native speaker. From my limited research though, I didn't see any huge problems using this word. If you have any other ideas though, for this one or another, please let me know. Alright, on to the next scripture. Right after, the king became allies with ... again 5 dots. And I have to admit, this one leaves me truly baffled. The most obvious one would be Pokemon as a species, or a specific Pokemon, but that is impossible, as all Pokemon names misalign in the way the dots differ between languages. So frankly, I have no answers for you here, nor do any of the next scriptures reveal what this word could be. It should be noted that in the Pokemon anime, Meloetta is linked to the Abyssal Ruins, so that may possibly be the answer if that is also true for the game's canon. It could be referred to by another term in order to fit, like music for example. On to the next scripture, which reads, "The king summoned beings from..." and then again 5 dots. It's another tricky one, but based on the name of these tombs, I think the word could possibly be abyss, as in depths of the sea. Do you remember what I said about the creators of the tombs knowing about the water torrents? This is where that ties in. Believe it or not, my theory is that the ancient civilization sunk the Abyssal Ruins themselves. This is even supported by the aforementioned mystery files, which say the following about the torrents. Is this a trick of the ancients to try and hide the existence of their super ancient civilization? They built the temple with the traps in order to keep their knowledge and the story of the king a secret. It's why the scriptures know how to circumvent the traps, and it's why the ruins are called Abyssal. But what were they trying to hide? Their knowledge of Arceus? Probably not, since, there's a whole region worshipping it. No, what they were trying to hide is revealed by the last scripture. It reads, "The great king, 8 dots, which implies the missing word is his name, putting together the king's extraordinary powers and the length of the word across all languages, and only one option remains. Harmonia, N's last name. N is a descendant of this great king, and has inherited his abilities, which is something Zinzalin already theorized all the way back when he gave you the books. It also perfectly explains why Ghetsis was so interested in these ruins. It wasn't about the treasures or the Arceus blades, it was part of his research into N's mysterious powers, and so he was looking into his ancestors, the king being one of them. In fact, the Relic crown strongly resembles the crown seen in the game's intro when Ghetsis puts it on N's head. A coronation, just like the Abyssal Ruins witnessed 3000 years ago. And with that, you know everything there is to know about one of Pokemon's most mysterious locales. Please let me know in the comments what you think could be the missing words. I'm really curious to hear your takes. If you enjoyed mine, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel to stay updated on all my future Pokemon content. For now, thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.